It's podcadzo.
I finally cleaned out my storage unit. I refound my favorite shirt.
That's amazing.
I hadn't had it for like a year. I was like, where is that Asia shirt? I wanted to wear it on the Steely Dan pod, but even
Wait,
better.
I meant to do something for this one. One sec.
Oh shit, are we about to get a mid-sode wardrobe change?
Dude,
Are
mid-sode.
you about to pull a
mid-sode
Bono on
fashion
us?
show.
About to be changing jackets every three
Oh,
minutes.
you got the rugby shirt, dude.
It might get too
That
hot in
in
here with
itself-
this on.
That in itself gives away what we're talking about today. If anyone doesn't know after that, then they're just stupid.
What do you think of that, Julian?
Well, if they listen
Damn.
to last week's episode, they should know.
Yeah, you spoiled. Yeah, or I spoiled it last week, I guess.
You said you weren't going to be here, Julian.
Did I say that?
What are you doing here?
Yeah, on the pod, you were like, "Oh, I won't be there," but you guys could talk about it.
Oh, well, here I am. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm still you. It was kind of a bait and switch type of move.
Well, I think I don't know. Were we originally talking about doing it on Wednesday?
Yeah,
It is one.
it's Wednesday.
Okay. Yeah, well, no, I know, but was that the day
The plan has come to fruition.
We said Monday at one point, but it got nixed pretty early in talks.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
How
Here
was
I
the
am.
visit with your folks, Connor?
It was lovely. I had just seen him because I was in Denver, and then I saw him again because they were out here. But it was nice. The weather was wonderful per usual. We didn't do anything. We went to a Michael Jackson tribute concert. Actually, forgot about that at a casino. It was pretty good actually. The guy was pretty good.
Nice.
He did a good MJ, good moonwalk, good voice. It was called MJ Live. They're usually in Las Vegas. If anybody wants to check it out in Vegas, I'll plug them.
Cool.
They were that good.
I would love to see
worth
that
a
next
plug
time I'm in
from the
Vegas.
Sandman himself.
Worth a plug. Worth a plug.
Yeah.
Better than Vampire Weekend. If you had a choice, I would go to MJ Live at Chumash Casino. That's just me.
Well, before we keep on burying the lead, let's just introduce officially what we're going to talk about today. Welcome to podcadzo, everybody. We have returning guest Conor Sanders joining us. And today we're talking about Vampire Weekend.
Yeah.
Before we talk about Vampire Weekend, Connor, you did not get a chance to share your albums of the year so far because we did that episode without you. So let's remedy that. Why don't you share your albums of the year list? We did 5. Are you sticking to 5?
Yeah, I'll stick to 5, and then I might do a couple HMs as well.
Okay. That's great.
Yeah. So I wrote them down. I didn't put them in order. I'm going to order them on the spot. Number 5 is going to be that new Sturgill Simpson, Johnny Blue Skies album. That one might move up the list. I haven't listened to it that many times, but it's really good.
Had that come out when we recorded our episode, I would have put that on my list. I'm a big Sturgill Simpson guy.
Are you a Sturgill Simpson guy, Julian?
Not particularly, but I've heard good things about that record.
He's got a lot of really good records. He's like a good entry point to country for guys who don't like country. He's probably the guy who helped get me into country the most.
I think so too. Yeah, when his first album, Meta Modern Sounds in Country Music, my dad turned me onto that one, and that started me down the country road. He's
a super sick guitar player, and he also likes doing mushrooms and stuff too. So he's pretty cool. But we're seeing him at the Santa Barbara Bowl in September. It's gonna be sick.
That'll be great.
Yeah. So I'm gonna put him at 5 for now. Like I said, he can move up, but it's still pretty fresh. I'm gonna go number 4. I'm gonna go Brat. You guys did a whole episode on Brat. Brat is great. Listened to it a bunch when it first came out. I haven't listened to it a ton lately. I mean, it got obviously pretty overexposed. So I took a little break. I think I'll probably go back to it once the media cycle dies down on it a little bit, but definitely an objectively great album.
If you are in cool circles and on the cool part of the internet, it can definitely get overexposed. Yeah. But there's still a lot of people who have never even heard it or don't know it exists.
That's a good point. And my algorithms are a Brat echo chamber, so I hear a lot about Brat. But
I went to a wedding a couple weekends ago in Oregon, and there's a DJ there, and he was taking requests. So I requested, I think I did 360, and no one at the wedding had ever heard that song.
What? How old were the people at the wedding?
Even the DJ, who was a professional DJ, didn't know it.
That's crazy that a wedding DJ wasn't like super in the loop on the music that's coming out.
Yeah.
I don't think anything's been added to wedding DJ's computers in a long time.
Yeah, that's true.
It's not their job. They're like, dude, I haven't listened to it.
Yeah. I play the Macarena. That's what I do.
All right. That's my 4. You guys talk plenty about that album, though. 3, I'm going to go the Mannequin Pussy album, I Got Heaven. That album was awesome. I don't know if you guys listen to it much, but
my girlfriend is obsessed with that record.
Dude, it's so good. It's like a super good mix of like some heavy songs and some songs that just sound like they could be like, they're just like good indie sort of songs. Really good balance. The heavy songs hit super hard. I've been listening to that one a lot, especially lately. But number 2, I got Agua.
Nice.
Which I'm sure we will expand on later, so I won't say much more about it now. And then number 1, I did Tiger's Blood by Waxahachie. I was late to that album, but I've been listening to it the last couple months. I've been listening to it so much. I probably listened to it like 30 times. I don't know what it is about it. It's not like a revolutionary country or Western record or anything, but it's just like every song is super catchy, and I really like the songwriting. It's just super good, and I have not gotten tired of it. So that's been number 1.
That was a glaring omission from both of our lists. You texted after we released that episode, and
I don't know.
I was embarrassed that it didn't make it.
That was like at the peak of when I was listening to it as well.
Yeah, I had forgotten it came out this year.
That one has especially not been talked about very much, even in cool circles. I think that one's super underrated too. So
yeah.
Hopefully now that we've talked about it on the biggest music podcast in America,
there will be a noticeable bump for sure.
The podcadzo bump.
The podcadzo bump.
It's a real thing.
Many artists, highly sought after.
By the way, Julian, I like the sunglasses inside.
Thank you. It's definitely a vibe for when you're doing some podcasts, staring at a screen, you know.
Yeah, I don't know. I might jump on it later. We'll see if my eyes get hurt.
My eyes feel so relaxed right now. I was going to wear my red light glasses, but they were pretty dirty and I didn't have time to clean them off really good. So
I'll have to turn the light on.
Turning the light on so he can wear his sunglasses. True commitment.
Oh, they're right here. Oh.
Nothing does a podcast better than just getting up and wandering around a room for a second.
I just wanted to make sure Colin has a little bit of editing to do later.
I'm not touching this one, guys.
This is the first podcast I've done with a mic. Usually I have my my AirPods in so I can just like walk around.
Yeah.
And I kind of forgot about that. And also I just did a whole lap around the room and these were literally right behind my computer. I did a lap. I was like,
fucking classic.
You guys both look cool as hell.
Dude,
I feel cool. My eyes feel nice and chill right now. You know, when you can look at something and you don't have to do too much work to see what's going on. That's what's happening right now.
I'm feeling way chiller. Also, if I get the hankering to to pop over and hit the pen, nobody
no one will notice.
any the wiser.
Yeah. Except for seeing you do the pen on camera.
No, because
as long as you do that part off camera, you'll be set.
I'm gonna do that part off screen.
Good.
I'll be incognito.
Because
I'm
not
a
editing.
drug-free podcast. We do not encourage consumption of any substances of any kind.
Yeah,
unless they are with a spoon.
Topic.
If you're consuming your substance with a spoon, then that's fine. So
like
peanut butter's good.
Food.
Nutella, yeah.
Ice cream.
Heroin.
Ice cream's a great example.
Yeah, I thought you were gonna.
Yeah, that's what I was
thinking. The heroin.
Well, spoon is just a part of the process for heroin.
True, kind of a middleman.
Ultimately, the needle is what's. Yeah.
That's fair. I just thought that's what you're talking about.
No, I would never bring up drugs on this podcast, as I previously mentioned. So
good. Me neither.
Great list, Connor. What are your HMs?
Oh, HMs, Blue Lips. I still need to listen to Blue Lips more, but I haven't enjoyed that.
It's so fucking
and I do really like Schoolboy Q. Like Blank Face was like one of my favorite rap projects of the last like 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then the one after it I didn't like as much, but yeah, this one's definitely a return to form. The new Chief Keef dropped a really good record this year called Almighty So 2.
I need to listen to that one.
If there's any Chief Keef fans out there, that one's a banger. Chief Keef has, well, sometimes not so quietly, but generally pretty quietly been putting out really good and influential drill for the last like 12 years, since he was like 15 years old, which is insane. Mm-hmm. I always forget he's like my age. And when we were listening to him in high school, he was like also our age. 15 when he came out with I Hate Being Sober. But yeah, it wasn't like a surprise because he's just super consistently putting good shit out. But this one was a big one that was in the rotation for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So that one, and then otherwise, I'm trying to think. I think that was all I had for the most part for this year. That's really jumped out at me. A couple I'm excited for. Nails is coming out with a record this month. First record in like 8 years or something. Chat Pile's coming out with a record in a couple months.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've recently got super into that.
About that.
That Chat Pile record.
Yeah. God's Country. Shout out.
Dude.
That record is incredible.
I would not.
It's so brutal.
You literally don't listen to it if you're not in a really good mood, or else it will just fucking.
It'll make you very sad and very anxious.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it really will. But like, especially that song at the end is pretty brutal. But a fun Chat Pile aside is I was listening to that song Dallas Beltway from an older EP, and I was like, dude, this riff sounds like a Korn riff. And I was like, I feel like these guys listen to Korn. And I looked him up, and it was the guitarist was like, nobody else in the band likes Korn, but I fucking love Korn. And I knew it.
Good to hear.
But I'm Korn. If there's one thing that's cool about Korn, it's their riffs. So I'm cool if he's gonna do Korn style riffs and then brutal lyrics on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
Nice, Colin. Nice. Welcome to the.
I'm glad you came over to the right side.
It's a good thing you did that. You were about to get seriously outcooled for the entire episode.
Yeah, I felt my self-esteem shrinking with each second.
I mean this in a really good way, but like your sunglasses make your whole entire head look smaller on camera.
In a good way?
In a good way.
In a good way, yeah. Like you don't look weird, but your head looks a little bit smaller than it did before.
I actually got a weird one yesterday. I was at a convention in Denver, work convention, and I met this woman I work with all the time over Zoom. We talk over Zoom all the time, but it was the first time I met her in person. And whenever I meet anyone, the first thing they say is, "Oh, I didn't know you were so tall." I'm 6'5" for the listener. And
so he's not even that tall.
Yeah.
Just a little bit above average.
6'5". It's pretty tall, Julian.
No, don't let it get to your head, man.
I get that too. I'm 6'3" and I get that.
Yeah.
But I'm also
Connor and I are big dudes.
I mean, I'm 5'8". I get that shit all the time.
I have a lot of tonnage.
People are like, "Damn, you're so tall. Can you reach that?"
But
for me?"
this woman said, "I had no idea you were so tall. You have a small face."
You have pretty small hair too.
No, I don't. I have big hair.
No, your hair's pretty small.
Yeah, it's not
Bigger than
huge.
yours. Yours is under
It's
hat.
bigger
right
than
now.
mine for sure. Yeah. No, even when mine's out, it's as small as it gets.
I do a little quaff.
Yeah, I
Couple
quaff.
inches.
I do a little
Connor
quaff.
quaffs.
I got hat hair right now, but
People used to think Connor and I were brothers growing up when we hung out with each other. Remember that?
I
Connor?
honestly could see that, especially when you
Yeah.
guys were younger. I've
Yeah, when we were
never seen a
kids.
picture of either of you when you were younger, but
Yeah, I know. People
Putting
we
it
assume
in
look
my
we're
head.
like
brothers a lot.
younger versions of what we look like now.
Yeah,
wow, that's crazy.
Yeah,
we
mostly.
aged like most other people do, where we looked kind of like ourselves. When we
We're
were
similar, but
But-
just like grew some facial hair and
younger.
got a little bigger.
Some people, I feel like, majorly transform from childhood to adulthood, but only
You had a
select
glow up,
few.
Julian. You had a major
I
transformation.
really did. I looked like I looked like that little squirrel from that. God damn it! What's that movie called? Where
We're all potting on a high level right now.
Over the hedge.
Over the Hedge.
Over the-
Thank you. I looked
Oh,
like the
hey.
squirrel from Over the Hedge
I don't remember what the squirrel looks
until
like.
I was about 18, and then I looked like a caveman.
Yeah, if people tell me I look a lot different than I did in high school, but they say I'm much uglier now.
Wow, they're just jealous.
I had a glow down. I used to be quite handsome.
I think you're
I'd
more
still do
handsome
ya.
than ever. And I thought you were really handsome in high school. I said, Connor, that handsome guy.
Oh, stop it.
Yeah.
Stop it.
That dude whose face writes all the checks.
I didn't know
John
Julian
Cash.
in high school. Julian, did you go to Rocky?
Yeah, I went to Rocky.
What year did you grad?
Same as fucking Colin. 15.
2015.
Fucking Colin. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
we didn't cross paths.
Yeah, I was exclusively in the band hallway pretty much all the time. I was one of those guys.
I cherished our 2 years of overlap, Connor.
Yeah, I used to.
You
take
drove me to school like every day freshman year, and we were late every day.
Yeah, we were always.
Having a lot of trouble in Spanish.
Actually,
all the time.
Yeah, I think you started finding another way to get to school because I was just late all the time.
Yeah.
It hasn't changed.
No, I think all this freshman year you took me, and then I started driving sophomore year, so I didn't need your services any longer.
Yeah, you got.
You were one of those kids that got your permit and then your license like really early, Colin. I was super jealous of you.
Yeah, because I'm right
like
on
you
the
had your license
start
when
of the
I was
school year.
Yeah.
Mhm. September
Fucking-
birthday.
God damn it. I'm at the back end of it too. It doesn't even And then my mom made me wait like 4 months after I turned old enough to get my permit. She was like, "Well, you're not ready yet." And I was like, "You're the one that's not ready yet.
What a
I've been
bitch.
ready since I was 10." Yeah.
I know Amy's listening to this.
Yeah, if you're listening to this, Amy, then fuck. I don't know if I should say fuck you or sorry. Neither of them are going to be genuine.
Probably sorry
so-
she's your mom. And I already
Yeah,
said
but
the B word.
I wanted to man, I'd been thinking about getting behind the wheel of a car for so damn long. I wanted it more than anything.
Yeah, you're a big car guy. I took it for granted the whole time. I said, this is dumb. I wish Connor was driving me.
Well, I had hockey practice at like 6 a.m. every morning, so my parents were like, "You are getting your license on your birthday, and we are never driving you to another hockey practice again."
I was
very
playing.
excited for me to start driving.
I was a renegade then when I was 16. So yeah, I was having to drive out to Greeley and
Ooh,
Connor.
go Junior Eagles!
Anyways, is that all the honorable mentions you had?
That was all my HMs, unless something else pops into my mind.
Okay.
But as far as new music, that's mostly what I've been listening to. Shout out to your Alistair Cowboy. I listened to them.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, they're
they'll
real
appreciate
good,
that.
aren't they?
They're a great band.
Yeah, they're sweet. They're
Mhm.
sweet. Big fan of them. And
Yeah.
then they put me on a little death metal kick recently, which I always appreciate. So
It's cool because it's a very specific type of death metal, but it also can open a lot of doors into other moods for me. Like whenever I listen to Alistair Cowboy, I either listen to like shitloads of thrash metal afterwards or just like melodic, like doomy prog. I feel like it
yeah,
can go
they
either
randomly
way.
got me into. I started listening to a lot of Gate Creeper after I was listening to them.
That makes sense. Colin is a big Gate Creeper
Yeah.
fan. I'm pretty
Gate
sure
Creeper
Maddie
and
is
Stealing
too.
Flesh were the two they like immediately directed me to.
Nice.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, put me in the mood for per se. But yeah, Gate Creeper is great gym music.
No
I
doubt.
believe that.
All right, guys.
Julian.
Well, let's get to the core of the topic today because we have a lot to cover in our episode.
We do.
And that topic is, of course, Vampire Weekend. So Connor and I both saw them in concerts on separate days. Connor saw them on Friday at Red Rocks.
Yep.
I saw them the following evening at the Dillon Amphitheater, which is an outdoor venue as well, about an hour and some minutes away from Red Rocks.
West.
We'll talk about the sets. We'll talk about just Julian and I have talked about Vampire Weekend and how we got into them and our thoughts on them. So Connor, I'd like to spend most of the episode talking about how you got into them and everything. And then I think we're going to rank our Vampire Weekend albums and top 10 songs. Is that the plan, guys?
Let's do it.
Okay.
Let's do it. Are you going to do any history on Vampire Weekend, or should we just? We probably don't really need to.
I don't think we need to. We did, like, real early on, we did a episode on the history of them a little bit. If we feel we need to, we can come back around to it. But
Preppy Columbia band was
New York indie rock.
Pretty much immediately successful. 5 albums. Boom.
5 albums. First one was 2008.
I think I've even talked a little bit on this podcast about how we got into them, but I didn't get into them till after Modern Vampires came out. I was in college. It was probably like probably within a year of Modern Vampires coming out, but my buddy was into it, and I had like always heard about them from a distance, but never really been that into them. And then I finally gave that album a spin, and obviously it's like an incredible album. So I got really into it, and then kind of went backwards. And then when I moved to Cape Cod in like 2016, I lived on Cape Cod, and I got really into their first album that summer because the one that has all the songs about Cape Cod on it. Yeah. Those are a vibe out there. But I'd say since like that time, like 2016-ish, they've been probably my favorite, at least active band, if not my favorite band ever. Are always steady in the rotation, are yearly in my Spotify top 5 artists, especially the first 3, and now the 5th record I listen to all the time. But besides that, I don't know, basically just best band ever. Got into them in college. Nothing too crazy of a story. Probably saw they had a high pitch for it.
Cool time to get into them because they are naturally a collegiate band.
Yeah, and they just had it was like perfect just having those first 3 albums to get into all in front of me at the same moment in the context. Made it really easy to appreciate all 3 of them. Like I can see why they were a little divisive when they first came out, but like just like if you only had that first album, but in the context of all 3, it's like, oh, these are all so good.
Yeah. So knowing what a big fan of Vampire Weekend you are, Connor, I was truly saddened by the text you sent us Friday morning when you said your flight had been canceled due to the crowd strike problem and that you were going to miss the Vampire Weekend show. So for the listeners, you live in California. You bought tickets to fly out to Denver just to see Vampire Weekend at Red Rocks.
Yeah.
The CrowdStrike incident happened. Your flight was canceled. We didn't hear from you the rest of the day. And then you texted us with a picture of yourself at the concert saying, "Boys, I made it."
Yeah. Yeah. I forgot I didn't tell you that whole story. That day was pretty wild because, that was the day of the CrowdStrike happenings. I had a super early flight out of San Luis Obispo, which is like an hour and a half north of me. Mm-hmm. So, and I flew out of there because I bought my ticket kind of last minute and it was cheaper. So I left my house. I played like a pickup hockey game late Thursday night. Didn't go to bed. Left my house like 2 a.m. Drove up to SLO. Hung out at the airport for a couple hours and they canceled my flight. I was like looking up. They delayed it a couple times and then they were like, "This is canceled and we can't rebook you or do anything right now because our whole computer system's down." So I was just like, well, cool. So I just drove home. So it was a nice 3-hour round trip. And I was like on zeros. I hadn't slept at all. I was driving home. Was super sad. But like literally couldn't even do anything like computer wise. So I was just like, there's no way I'm getting on a plane today. So I texted my buddies that I was going with. I was like, there's no way I'm going to make it. Went home, took a nap for like 3 hours. I woke up at like noon and was like, I'll just check the app for shits and giggles. And I checked the app and they had a flight that I could switch to out of Santa Barbara at like 2. I was like, fuck, all right, I'll do it. And I called my buddy and I was like, dude, I got a flight. And he was like, dude, we literally just sold your ticket like 2 minutes ago.
Oh, no.
So they sold my ticket. But then luckily his wife sold me her ticket. I don't think she really wanted to go that bad. It was like her and 7 guys. So she was like, cool, you can have mine. So I bought her ticket. I landed in Denver at like 6 p.m. My dad is the real MVP of the story. Picked me up at DIA and drove me straight to Red Rocks. And I got on in between. I got there between opener and headliner, like 15 minutes before they came on. Caught the whole set. It was pretty sweet.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was a wild day. So yeah, I was supposed to land in Denver at like 8:30 a.m. Ended up landing at like 6 p.m. It was a little bit crazy, but we made it. But I did not. Yeah, there was definitely a point where I was like, I'm not gonna make it.
Yeah, definitely. I know. I was really truly happy when you sent the text that you did make it. It was great. Did Kingfish open at Red Rocks too? Is that who the opener was?
Open, but I did not see any Kingfish.
Yeah.
I did not get there in time. My friend said it was awesome.
Yeah, Kingfish is dope. I actually got to do sound for Kingfish one time. Like I think on his first tour, he came through Fort Collins and I mixed him. He was a really nice guy.
He is a super gnarly guitar player.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He came on. Did he come on for a song with you guys? He came on for one of Red Rocks.
Yes. Him and the band came on during the encore and jammed. Fuck, I'll have to look up the set list. I'm forgetting what song they jammed on.
Yeah, I've also forget. But I will say, speaking of that, to segue, I think that you got the better set list.
I couldn't believe how unreal the set list was. Should we shift to that? Should we shift to set lists for our shows? Yeah,
I'm going to grab a Coors Light before we do that.
Okay.
Sorry, Julian. Sorry for getting up and walking around again.
I like it.
Julian, well, Connor's up, so I'll mention I at the Dillon Amphitheater show just got to my seats, settled in. I had such a great night at Dillon Amphitheater. I'll start here. So, Julia, my fiance, bought these tickets for us several months ago. So I've been looking forward to the show since like March. And I love going to shows at Dillon Amphitheater. It's a really cool venue. We always camp in a campsite near there when we go to shows there. So we booked a campsite. We got up that day around like 2. We went straight to the campsite, set up camp, had a couple beers at the campsite, And then we biked from the campsite. There's this cool bike trail that goes along the reservoir in Dillon. So we biked from the campsite to the venue, which was awesome because then we didn't have to worry about driving and parking and having drinks. We got there early enough to get a pretty good spot in line. And then so as soon as the doors open, I rushed to the merch booth because the merch line at Dillon Amphitheater can be really, really bad. Like last show I went, there was the National, and I think I waited over an hour to get a t-shirt at the National show. And I didn't even want a National merch that bad. I was just committed, when I got on the line. And so I only had to wait in the merch line.
Listen to the National.
What's that?
Who wants people to know that they listen to the National?
Julian and I are both big National fans. Julian is the National's another band that Julian has permanently ingrained on his skin.
Oh, yes,
really?
I'm a very big National fan. I've got my Apple Watch on right now, but
anytime you're having trouble sleeping at night, you just look at that tattoo and
furiously masturbate until I fall back.
I've fallen out of love a little bit with the National since that show at the Dillon Amphitheater, but that's another story. But anyways,
okay, Guy, a band can still be great though.
Anyways,
no.
the merch line was only like 5 minutes. I spent a little over $200 on merch, went a little buck wild, but Vampire Weekend merch is part of the lore. They have one of the best merch games in the biz. So that was good. And then we got to our seats, got pretty good seats, like in the GA area. We were like second row, third row up. And I look over my left and I made eye contact with Julian's dad, and we walked over and hugged each other. And then I was like, why the hell isn't Julian at the show? So Julian, why weren't you at that show?
Well, Colin, I wasn't at that show because I quit my job, and so I couldn't afford to buy a ticket realistically.
Nice.
Yeah, it was one of those things that I forgot was happening until after the deed had been done and my money just needed to go other places. And beyond that, like I don't know, I just didn't feel like seeing them at Red Rocks. And then when it came to getting to Dillon Amphitheater, I just didn't know how I was going to do it because my parents were going with friends and they didn't have room for me. And I knew if I went up to Dillon, I wasn't really going to realistically want to come back up to Waverly the same night. So it just turned into a logistical situation of like I wasn't going to make it for several reasons. And it was honestly very, very sad. Like I missed the Bombay show, which I've been looking forward to for literally like 5+ years, and that's exactly what happened with Vampire Weekend too. So not really going to forgive myself for it anytime soon.
I'm sorry, bro. They'll come back.
It's all good.
We'll go there.
Yeah, they'll be back.
We'll see Bombay again too. Connor, you like Bombay Bicycle Club?
I've only heard a couple tracks from them.
I think as a Vampire fan, you'll like Bombay Bicycle Club.
Yeah, I would hope so. Especially, well, like, I don't know. They are one of those bands where like their discography goes in a lot of different directions. Like each album's pretty different. So.
Oh, nice. Well, it sounds like very nitpicky of me especially after everything I went through, and I still made it to the Red Rock show. But after I saw the set list from the the Dillon show, it was like really hard for me not to have FOMO still. Somehow it's like I should have fucking just gotten to both, which I also live in California and am poor, so I feel that, Julian. That's also why I didn't spend $200 at the merch stand. But I did get a shirt. But I went to like the side merch stand. I didn't go to the big tent. And so they didn't have all the same merch. So I just got a t-shirt. But it's a cool t-shirt. It has like the dude in the mine. And it says like only God was above us, and the V like turns into vampire. It's a cool shirt.
I saw that one. I got a t-shirt.
But then after that I kept seeing people in the rugby shirts. I was like, well, where the fuck did I get those? That's sweet. But,
yeah, I wasn't gonna ball out that hard at the merch table, but I saw the rugby shirts, and I already have a rugby shirt collection.
You're
rugby shirt
you're
guy.
Definitely more of a rugby shirt guy than than myself.
It's probably my favorite apparel to wear, a rugby shirt. So I saw the Vampire Weekend one and couldn't pass it up. But anyways, Connor and I both saw them at Red Rocks in 2019 on the Father of the Bride tour.
Yeah.
And I had a great time at that show, but it was honestly like kind of a forgettable experience for me. And I was bummed out about that because that was my first time seeing Vampire Weekend. And, you know, I'd been waiting for an album from them forever and was so excited to see them. But that concert came around and I was pretty sick for the show, but I went anyways. So I wasn't feeling great. The weather was kind of rough that night. And I just didn't think I got too great of a set list at
I think I went to because they played 2 nights at Red Rocks.
Yeah, we went to different nights, I remember.
Yeah, I went to the night with good weather, but those 2 set lists were not that different.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, this night, like I will say, for starters, I think in 2019 they were kind of like still figuring out how to play live without Rostam. I think. So, and they were obviously like super. Ezra was on his dead kick, and they were getting super jammy.
The band was too big.
Yeah, and I think like this time seeing them, like from the first song, it was like, oh yeah, they tightened it up big time.
Yeah,
like I think they sounded a lot tighter and a lot better than they did in 2019.
They did. I was just blown away by how good the performance was. So should I recite my set list first? Connor, you want to do? Okay,
you can go first.
So I got Oxford Comma as an opener, which was crazy, and that was a cool. Like they came out one by one. So CT came out first and started playing the beat, and immediately recognizable. So everyone went crazy, and then Bayo came out and started the bass line. They jammed that for like a couple minutes. Then Ezra finally came out and got a big pop. So the first 3 songs, Oxford Comma, Holiday, and One, were only the 3 original members playing: CT, Bayo, and Ezra, which was cool. They had a Vampire Weekend, flag behind them, blocking the rest of the stage. So they did like a small set with just 3 of them for those 3 songs. And then started Ice Cream Piano, and that's when the backdrop came down, and they had the whole band. Ice Cream Piano was great. Then Classical, Connect, M79, Campus, This Life, Step, Sunflower, Run, which was the first time they'd played Run since January of 2020, I guess. Pretty cool.
Not that much in that span. But
what's that?
Is it not that they've played that many shows in that span?
Yeah, exactly.
But that's such a good song.
Mm-hmm. Pravda, Cousins went off. A-Punk, Ottoman. So that rock block there of Cousins, A-Punk, Ottoman was just insane. That was definitely the peak of the show for me. And I wanted
Ottoman so bad both times I saw him, and they didn't play it either time I saw him. That might have been the one I was the most pissed off about when I saw it. I was like, God.
Yeah, and so they did Scottoman, which is the Scott Up Ottoman, and I skanked my little heart out. I danced I never danced at shows, but I was in a really good mood at Vampire Weekend and had a couple of drinks, so I was dancing the whole night. It was really fun.
Same.
Prep School Gangsters, Capricorn, Gen X Cops, Diane Young, Mary Boone, Hannah Hunt, which I don't know if that was on purpose, but they did the 3 female name songs in a row there: Diane Young, Mary Boone, Hannah Hunt. Harmony Hall, and then finished off the standard set, or the first set, with Hope. And then they came out for an encore. They're doing the thing. Their encores where they take suggestions from the audience. So they did Santeria, Shakedown Street, Boys Don't Cry, Girlfriend in a Coma by the Smiths, which was great. You Can Call Me Al, which was great. Brown Eyed Girl. And then they finished with Walcott. There was a dude in the front row who was going crazy all night and had a sign. He was one of those dudes who came to concert and said, "Let me play guitar with you." So at that point, Ezra let him on stage and gave him a guitar, and then he played Walcott with them. So that was nice. And then they did a Flower Moon in the style that they did on SNL. So it was like a kind of jazzy, saxed up Flower Moon. And that's when everyone came out on stage. And that was cool. And that's how they ended the night.
Nice. Yeah. The one you got Hannah Hunt, Step, and Pravda. I don't think we got Pravda. Those were 3 I would have loved to get. So I got Cousins. And then Cape Cod, Kwassa Kwassa, Ladies of Cambridge, which I guess they're just calling Boston now. That was a cool one. They played that the last time I saw them too. So 2 for 2 on seeing Ladies of Cambridge, which is kind of a random one. Ice Cream Piano, Classical Connect. It was super cool to hearing the 3 songs straight off of the new album was super satisfying.
Yeah, definitely. So we got that same 3 in that order too. Yeah, and I agree. It was great. It was, sorry not to interrupt you, Connor, but right before the show, Julia and I were talking about the new album, and we listened to it on the drive up to Dillon, and we were ranking songs, and I said, like, if there's one song on the album that wasn't resonating with me that hard, it was probably Connect. And then when they played Connect live, I was like, oh, this might be my favorite song on the album now.
I was kind of, I was like, oh, this song sounds really good. Like, which one is this? I'm like, oh, I was kind of like, it probably wasn't my favorite, but came through really good live. And then we got White Sky, which is one of my favorites. This Life, Unbelievers, Sympathy, New Dorp, New York, which is, I forget what that even part. They jammed out pretty hard for this stretch. There were a lot of people. They went on a pretty long, like a 10+ minute jam with this.
That's the one that isn't that a one that Ezra's featured on with like Major Lazer or some like Diplo. Isn't that a Diplo song? New York, New Dorp.
I don't even know. I think I just thought they were just jamming out Sympathy. Honestly, I didn't even really notice it happen.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And then we got The Surfer. And then Sunflower, and then Diane Young, great song. Gen X Cops, Prep School Gangsters, A-Punk, Cocaine Cowboys, Vampire Blues cover, which is when Kingfish came out. So that was actually like his song. And then Harmony Hall, Mary Boone, Hope, which is awesome. They really went for a while with the requests with us. I could have gone for them playing a couple more vampire songs and a couple requests because they didn't know how to play the songs, but they did do it again, which was hilarious. And I was wearing this shirt, and I had a couple people come up to me and ask if I was the guy who suggested Steely Dan, but I was not. It was somebody else. And then they did Girls Just Want to Have Fun, which was funny because the song that was requested was I Want to Dance with Somebody by Whitney Houston. And the guy played the bass line, and they accidentally started playing Girls Just Want to Have Fun instead. Pizza Party, I don't remember where that was. Smooth Operator, Say It Ain't So, Brownsville Girl. So they got a Dylan one in there. September, What's Up, Born to Run, Dancing in the Dark in the middle. The middle, that was the Jimmy Eat World song that they ended with. They played that straight into Walcott, which was it segued super well.
That's awesome.
And I'm glad they're back to ending shows with Walcott. I don't think they did that last time I saw them, but that's the classic vampire ender. So it was good. The main thing, honestly, I wouldn't be Hannah Hunt is just like one of my favorite songs ever, and not seeing it makes me sad. So I wish I would have seen Hannah Hunt. But besides that, it wasn't a bad set list by any means. You just got a couple in yours that I was like,
What'd you think of Cocaine Cowboys?
That was another one where I'm like, it's solid, but I kind of would rather hear just a different vampire song, probably. They did the Gold Rush. It was kind of fun. They brought a fan up on stage and did the Gold Rush thing.
Yeah. I was kind of glad to not get like the gimmicky stuff like that at our set and just get songs.
Yeah, which doesn't really surprise me that that's how they did that. and part of me I don't know. I listen to Time Crisis all the time, and I'm obviously feel like I'm pretty in touch with Ezra's vibe, and so that stuff doesn't bug me as much because I feel like he's just kind of having fun out there. But for the people who are less deep in the vampire lore, my sister was not a huge fan of all the requests.
Yeah,
It's I'm he's just having fun. But yeah, I could see. But it was. I mean, overall, still awesome show. Great show.
That's funny. You got a pizza party. Because that's the one when they were taking requests, I drunkenly shouted out "pizza party." It was just the first thing that came to mind.
Yeah, my sister said because I was I was in the row 12 at Red Rocks, and my sister also thought I was the one who suggested Steely Dan. And I was not, but I was very excited when they played it. So
yeah. Well, hell yeah. So did you get every song on Agua then? I got everything but the Surfer.
No, we didn't get Pravda.
Okay, I got Pravda, but not.
I would have swapped out the Surfer for Pravda if I had my Ice Cream Piano, Classical, Connect, Surfer,
3, 4,
Mary Boone, Hope, Gen X Cops, Prep School Gangsters. Yeah, right? That's 8 out of 9.
That's 8. There's 10 songs though on the new album. Did you say the Surfer in that though?
Yeah. 1.
I don't think I counted the Surfer. Yeah, so I think we both got 9 out of 10.
3, 4, 5. Maybe I did only get 8. No. You know what? Who knows? But this isn't very good podcasting. We could go check that out and post.
Yes.
I think I got everything but Pravda.
Yeah, I got everything but the Surfer. Okay. Well, there's more we could talk about with the sets and all that stuff, but I propose we just move straight into the rankings because I think this is how, we can obviously spend a lot of time talking about the rankings.
Yeah.
So do you guys want to do songs first? Albums first?
Let's do.
What say you?
I don't know. Let's leave it up to Julian. Julian, what do you say?
Why? Why me?
I don't know, because you've been pretty quiet over there.
If I make the wrong decision, then you can just both shift all the blame onto me.
The beauty of it is there is no wrong decision.
I would pitch that we do albums first because I think albums are what people actually care about. And then for the real fans of the podcast that want to stick around to hear the nitty-gritty song-by-song analysis, they can choose to do so afterwards.
Let us get real nerdy on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are we cool. For the songs, are we only doing album tracks or for example, could Ottoman be on the song list?
I think it could be on the song list.
You could do
it's
whatever
not on my song list.
Want.
I was just asking because I thought maybe Julian would have it on his song list or something.
Also not on my song list.
Okay, albums.
Yeah.
This is going to be really interesting. So let's go in a circle. We'll go from 5 to 1. We'll each name our 5 and then do our 4. So Connor, you're the guest. Why don't you kick us off with your 5th?
All right. This one might shock you guys, but my number 5 is Father of the Bride. There are a few good songs on it. There's a couple really good songs. Harmony Hall is, I think, a top tier vampire song, but just too long, and I don't know. There was a little bit of a weird direction on this one. First album without Rostam, and it just didn't hit super hard, and yeah, just had a lot of songs that didn't need to be there on it. Don't think it needed to be a double album, and was happy that they bounced back with the next one. But
I think no surprises here. My fifth, Father of the Bride.
Nice.
I echo everything Connor says. This is something we have talked about on the pod before, that Connor and I think both kind of tricked ourselves into liking it when it first came out more than we actually did. And then, yeah, it was like, a couple months after playing the album on like nearly every day, listening to it every day, I was like, do I like this album? Like, honestly, a lot of these songs bother me, annoy me. And, but I kind
Some of
of
the songs are just not good.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
said you came around to it though. a couple
I
weeks
was going to bring
ago.
this up. I came around. What happened was, in Julia's car, she only has a CD player. We went on a road trip in her car, and we were listening to the CD a lot, Father of the Bride. And I went on a rant. I went on a rant to Julia saying, I really hate Father of the Bride. This album's stupid. And Julia said, you like this album. We both like this album. You're singing along to every song. Like, it's a good album. I don't know why you have to be such a negative loser, creep, hater.
Because it's fun.
How's that?
Yeah.
Hating on stuff is fun.
I bring, the same energy we have in podcasts to like conversations with Julia and like just our friends. And, like the three of us, I think, not to get up our own asses, but I think, we listen to music a little bit more critically than other people might. And we like, maybe like, especially Vampire Weekend, have a deeper connection than other people do. And we were having that same conversation with friends. We were talking about the Vampire Weekend show, and they were talking about, oh yeah, Father of the Bride, I liked that album. And I was like, that album sucks, you guys are dumb. And like everyone turned on me. They're like, what are you talking about? It's a great album. And
No,
anyways,
it's
so
not
I
a
don't
great.
it's not a great
I
album.
think
I maintain it's not a great album. All I said in our text chain is that I was coming around to a little bit and realized that it did hold a special place in my heart. And that there are some good songs on it.
you kind of touched on this a little bit, but like if you actually really love a band and you're like deeply into like the universe and the lore that's built up around it, hating on a record is actually indicative that you really give a shit about the band. Like if
That's
you
the point
just
I made.
accept any old
That's
crap,
why we hate it. That's why we hate it.
because we
it's
have
the
really
one
high
outlier.
standards for like arguably the best band of our generation, or not our generation, but the best band that came up when we were growing up.
And it gave us 5 years of anxiety of being like, is this what
Is it
Vampire
going to
Weekend
be?
is
Yeah.
like? Yeah, like is this going to be
Exactly.
forever?
Yeah, and that's the same point I'm in. I was like, guys, I just hold Vampire Weekend as such a high esteem, and like I was anticipating Father of the Bride for 6 years. Like I couldn't wait for a Vampire Weekend album. So exactly, like yeah, I really care about the music, and it fell short for me. But another thing that kind of made me come around to it was Julian and I talked about this, Connor, but I haven't had a chance to talk about it with you yet. Did you listen to the Rick Rubin interview that Ezra did on the Tesseract podcast?
No.
You should check that out. It's like a crazy conversation. It's a two-parter, and each episode is like over 2 hours long. So they talk for like nearly 5 hours.
Damn.
And at the end of the second part, they talk about Father of the Bride. And Ezra talks about changing up his lyrical approach and style. And what song were they talking? They were talking about This Life and how there's some like, because to step back, part of my problem with Father of the Bride was I didn't feel like it was up to lyrical snuff. But, and there's like, especially like songs like This Life where I found some of the lyrics kind of whack the first time I was listening through it. But Ezra said something like, a line like, baby, I know pain is as natural as the rain. I just thought it didn't rain in California. He said, that I think a lot of people hated on him for that line, and that, people kind of treated it as like basic. But he said, that he was kind of like entering a new mind space where it was almost like classic rock, like Tom Petty, like grand, simple statements like that. And he said, like, you know, I should be so lucky to be considered, you know, like, or even like compared to like those classic rock guys who would make.
Yeah.
I'm not doing a good job of recapping
But
it.
he's not, though. I didn't think, like, did you honestly think, like, upon first listen of some of those lyrics, did you think, like, oh, this reminds me of Tom Petty? Like, I didn't ever have that thought.
No, but
I
you
think
know,
I
just
appreciate like what he was going for, and I'm not mad at him for like taking such a left turn, especially having that be the first album where he was the only like the main songwriter and not sharing those duties. Maybe he felt like without Rostam there, he did, which I don't blame him. Like maybe he felt like if he wrote stuff like their old stuff, then it would just like that hole would be even more glaring. So they just left turned. But I'm just glad that he really did a good job taking the good stuff out of that, the few good things out of that, and then moving on from that style.
Yeah.
It's still pretty. I would say that the Father of the Bride era is still much more present in their live show than it was on their last album, though. Which is good. I think that's kind of where that vibe belongs on their live show. But their albums like are so good earlier because they're so like meticulously produced, and like that album was just like loose and not edited down enough, and had a long track list and had a lot of maybe too many collaborators, and so
yeah,
those are my thoughts.
That's a good way of putting it, honestly. Like maintaining like the jammy atmosphere and kind of aesthetic for the live shows, and then that way they can still kind of get their enjoyment from doing both things, like making very serious studio pieces to then fucking around on stage, having a cornhole throwing in the middle of a show or whatever.
Yeah. Like I think Ezra really makes an effort not to come off as someone who takes themselves too seriously. So maybe that's part of where that album came from too. I
feel like that was part of the interview with Rick Rubin. But yeah, you should check it out, Connor. It's a good podcast. All right, Julian, you're number 5.
Well, it should come to no surprise as anybody at this point. My least favorite is Father of the Bride. It's number 5. I would have ranked it lower if that's possible somehow. I think this is not only my least favorite Vampire Weekend record, but I was trying to think of a good, like, not overly stated way to put how I feel about this record. And I think I would say it's the most disappointed in one of my favorite bands I've ever been. Like, I have my like Mount Rushmore of bands and Vampire Weekends on there, and I think that no band that I love so much has ever disappointed me more than they did with this release. After 5+ years of anticipation, being teased that it's a double album, getting like 6 singles that all felt like joke songs, and then the entire album just turning out to be kind of a joke in itself, really disappointed me. And I didn't ever think I'd like Vampire Weekend again afterwards, but Only God Was Above Us definitely won me back. So
can you give any songs credit? Do you like any songs? I think
I would say I like the song Sympathy, but even the best song on the record it doesn't hold a candle to the worst song on their next worst record, in my opinion. There's not a single song on that record that does not feel incomplete and not fully thought out, not fully done to me, including Sympathy. I feel like there's lots of parts of that song where it feels like they literally were just like, well, we need to make the song like 45 seconds longer, so let's just repeat the melody, but we'll just put it on Mellotron instead of like having it being guitar for one repetition. Like, it just feels like they just added stuff for the sake of adding stuff. Nothing has a point. Nothing goes anywhere. It's like a jam record, but if jam records had no like passion behind them, because even jam records that go on and on that are like kind of repetitive and kind of stale, they at least feel like genuine. But Father of the Bride to me doesn't feel like a genuine attempt at that, in my opinion. And I know Ezra would never fake anything, so I'm not trying to accuse them of like just putting out a record for the fuck of it. But to me, listening to it, it just feels like they just didn't really care about finishing songs and making them like fully presentable from start to finish. And then the fact that it's way too long and over half the songs are just like interlude songs that literally go fucking nowhere and have stupid lyrical hooks. It's just like, why did you guys put this out? You literally, like, I understand Rostam left. There was a creative hole, but like, Only God Was Above Us, Ezra has said is so good because like CT helped write a lot of the songs. Bayo helped write a lot of the songs. It was very collaborative. Their producer helped write a lot of the songs. Like, not helped write a lot of the songs, but just helped organize the record in a lot of ways. So like, why didn't they just do that instead of this bullshit of like, well, I want to make a jam record and then trying to like stick to it and like prove to everybody like this is what we're doing now for this run. It just felt like a misstep to me through and through. So
Yep.
Well said. Well said. All right, Connor, you're number 4.
Yeah, that's enough. That's enough. I don't like talking so negative about my boys like that. So I'm glad we got
it's
that
true.
out of the way early. Number 4 for me is, and recency bias here. Maybe come back in 5 years and see, but it is currently Only God Was Above Us. But we are into 4 records that are 4 very amazing records that I love deeply. So I really enjoyed this album. Just relief. It's the first feeling. Big sense of relief. Even off the singles, I wasn't sold. I think we talked about it. I listened to the Capricorn and Gen X Cops came out first. I think I listened to those, and then I didn't listen to those. I wasn't like totally sold to those songs out of context. I was honestly like, are they going too far back to like are they overcorrecting? Because there are some lines and parts in those songs that feel, the whole album feels like it's going back a little bit. And once hearing all the songs in the context of the album, it's like that balance of them pulling from their older stuff really well, but making it a new thing. And it doesn't feel like, I thought it was going to feel maybe like a Modern Vampires 2 off the first 2 singles, but I don't think it feels that way at all. There's moment, and not even full songs. I wouldn't say, just moments in songs that really bring you back to where you can put your finger on like an album or a song it reminds you of. But it's done to just such a good balance of like feeling new, but still feeling like familiar, and just really, really listenable all the way through with some really awesome moments on it. And then an ender that feels like just the culmination of everything Vampire Weekend's done, and Hope, and it's just such a good song. Ezra's songwriting is so back on track here to where it's it's a little more creative, a little more funny, but also a little more serious than Father of the Bride, and just a really good album. And I'm really happy that they had it in them. It was a relief for sure.
Fantastic summary. Mine was also Agua. I agree with everything you said. Although I don't know if there's a future in which Agua ranks above any of the 3 we're gonna get into. I think the first 3 albums are just so important to me, and and again like part of it is just the moment in my life when those albums came out. It's an amazing album. I was super happy with it. I like it more and more every time I listen to it, and great songs. Julian.
All right. Well, this is where the field diverts, my gents. I'm sorry to do this to you.
Interesting.
I had to be the.
I'm glad for this.
I'm always the outlier, which is.
I really thought
it's
we'd
not on
all
purpose.
have
I
the same
genuinely
5
am
and
not
4.
trying to do it on purpose, but. I agree with everything you guys are saying about Only God Was Above Us. Especially Connor mentioning the fact that like Capricorn and Gen X Cops being the first 2 singles. I remember texting you the night those came out, Colin, and being like, Capricorn's all right, and then Gen X Cops, I can't like get behind it really. Like I didn't understand it until it was in the context of the album, and it had some more complex songs around it to kind of like justify its presence. But anyway, all that being said, my number 4 is going to be Modern Vampires of the City by Vampire Weekend, which I know probably offends some listeners. So I'm sorry. I've got to be really honest with you guys. This record's never really crossed over into like next level amazing territory for me. It's always been, it's a really good record and I've always really liked it. It's never been one that hangs around in my repertoire for super long. I don't listen to it that much. I don't really think it's like super masterful all the way through. I think there's some songs on it that I could take or leave. And it's really the only other Vampire Weekend record where I kind of feel like there are songs that I'm not super into. But that being said, it also does have some of their best work on it. So I'm not trying to discredit it as a record. I just think that for me personally, I never really fully got the hype and I never really fully understood why Vampire Weekend, especially people that were super into the first 2 records, why they really latched on to Modern Vampires as much as they did. Because I do feel like it is super different from the first 2 and should kind of be in its own universe, as it were.
Latched on, no pun intended.
Exactly.
Because they're vampires.
Because they latch onto people's skin and suck the blood.
Suck the blood. I want to suck your blood.
Want to suck your blood.
Okay.
All right, number 3.
Yeah. Well,
unless you have anything to say to Julian, Connor.
I have nothing to say to Julian.
I'll show myself
a lot
out.
of bad opinions, but there are no bad opinions except for Julian's. But
Except
we
for
can
mine.
talk about it. We'll talk about it later. I'll retort at a later time. Number 3. Who's up? Is it my turn?
It's you, big
Your
man.
turn.
Yeah.
My number 3. It's really hard to pick between 2 and 3. Honestly, were the only 2 ones I think I had a hard time with on the whole list. But I'm gonna stick with what I have written down, and I'm gonna go Contra at number 3. It's so good, and there's times it feels like it's my favorite. I think the reason I'm gonna put it at 3 is just the bigger songs on here, like Horchata, Holiday, and Cousins, never really did it for me. Like those are the 3 like big singles, and I'm not a huge fan of them. And that's 3 songs on a 10-song album. So, but I will say I love the song White Sky. Oh, California English, I could also lose that song. But then you have like that run of like Run is so good, Giving Up the Gun, Diplomat Son, I Think You're a Contra. Diplomat Son is one of my favorite Vampire Weekend songs ever. They obviously went super Paul Simon influence on this album, which I loved. Graceland's one of my favorite albums ever. I looked up, I was doing some Genius lyric reading because there's a line on Diplomat Son where he says, I'm going to take it from Simon. And I looked it up, and apparently that song is about 2 gay lovers, and he's talking about literally taking it from a guy named Simon. But I think Rostam wrote that one. But I think that is also a play on words there a little bit, because that album is like obviously has a lot of Paul Simon influence, but those like more kind of synthy world music-y songs on it, I think just are so good and so fleshed out. So it's hard for me to have it at 3, but I think just because there's a couple songs that I could leave on it, that's where I'm going to put it for consistency's sake.
So I struggled insanely hard with the ranking of my 3. I have had every possible combination, every possible order. I feel okay right now what my third one is, but I am surprised it is my third because pretty much forever this was my default answer for my favorite Vampire Weekend album. But what I'm putting as my third is the self-titled debut Vampire Weekend album. This happened when I had it as my first. I made the album list and said, this is a decision I've made that the self-title is my favorite Vampire Weekend album. But then as I was ranking songs, I said, I don't know if that's the case. Because a lot of the songs on the self-titled aren't my favorite songs. So that's when I started moving stuff around. And then when it ended up as my third favorite Vampire Weekend album. So I might regret that later on. The
only argument with you there is like, I feel like that one's just a whole vibe. That one feels like the most cohesive front to back.
It is the most cohesive album. And that's why it was.
There's not like one song on the album. The songs are all short too, for the most part. Like even I Stand Corrected. I was listening to I Stand Corrected the other day, and I had that in my head as like a 5-minute ender. It's still only like a 2-minute song.
Yeah.
But that album's just definitely like this about the whole sound of the album to me.
It's an album.
I get what you mean when you're doing your tracks and you're like, oh, if I don't like.
Yeah.
That's why I had Contra at 3 because there were tracks I didn't like on it.
Tracks I didn't like, yeah. Yeah, I might regret that later on. I think the debut album is one of the most impressive debut albums of all time for that reason, Connor, that it just sounds so cohesive and they've like arrived with a fully formed, totally unique sound. And they're all great songs.
For the hate they got when it came out, it's pretty crazy to think how good it still sounds.
It's so funny how much hate they got.
People thought it was such like a trendy indie thing, like they're gonna blow over, and the fact that there's still people like fucking nerds like us that still listen to it.
And it's so funny how much they were dismissed as just like waspy industry kids when they were really like of the band were Jewish.
Like they went to Columbia, but they were really acting up the preppy.
They were, and Ezra is Jewish. Rostam comes from a Arab family, Muslim family, and I think word got out that Ezra's dad was in the entertainment industry, and so they just assumed they were Nepo babies. But he was like a set designer, he's like, it's not very glamorous.
Yeah, they did go to Columbia, but
Yeah.
Have you seen that old Clickhole article about Vampire Weekend?
That rings a bell.
You know what Clickhole is, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So they have this article, and it came out. Let me just find the headline. I'll send it to you guys. The funniest thing is it came out in like 2017, but it's written like it came out in like 2008, right when their first album came out. And bad podcasting here. I'm almost there. Oh yeah, this art headline is, "Who gives a fuck about an Oxford comma? They do. Meet the 4 Columbia prepsters who prove that caring about grammar might just rock."
I just found it. That's so funny.
It's pretty. The whole thing's pretty funny. Oh yeah, it came out in 2022, and it's like written.
Sweaty nightclubs, too much booze, leather jackets. Those are just a few of the things that come to mind when you think of rock and roll. That's really good. Cool. I'll read the whole thing later.
That just made me think of that. That's like how people really felt.
Yeah.
Night.
Definitely.
Like, but these guys are talking about grammar and Little John. This is too weird for me, man.
Yeah.
I'll stick with my Nora Jones.
All right, but I rambled on about the first album for too long. So Julian, you're third.
Well, not to copy and paste what you said, but pretty much exactly the same thing happened to me. I wound up putting the self-titled as my number 3 as well. It was higher up my list. And then actually about like 5 minutes before we sat down to do this podcast, I looked at my list for a final time and I decided, as much as I love the self-titled, it's not what I go back to when I go back to Vampire Weekend these days. And I've listened to it so many times that the songs are like forever institutional to me, but the significance of the songs don't necessarily make it like one of my top tier like favorite Vampire Weekend records. So I put it at number 3. I wouldn't change like a single thing about the record. Like every song is amazing. I agree with what you said as far as debuts. Like there's not too many debuts that I can think of that are as strong as this one, both in concept and production. And this is one of the few bands where I felt like a ground floor fan, where like as soon as A Punk came out, I was like, oh, like I'm gonna be around, like I'm gonna be following this band for like the rest of my life, pretty much. So yeah.
Until they make a disappointing
until Father of the Bride came out, and then I said, I am done with these guys forever.
Motherfuckers. Forever.
All right. Number 2, Connor.
All right, number 2. I kind of went the opposite way of you guys, where I thought that the self-titled debut would probably end up as my 3, and then obviously I didn't do as much re-listening to this as I did in past episodes, because I just listen to so much Vampire Weekend regularly anyway, and I just saw him live, so I listened to him a bunch before that. But I did a quick spin through, and I don't know, man, Vampire 1 was just sticking with me. So I went Vampire Weekend 1 as my number 2. Kind of you guys covered most of it. Just such a super cohesive sound. They very shamelessly are wearing influences on their sleeve, Paul Simon, Peter Gabriel, but they are also doing a completely new thing at the same time. And I was just listening to the latest Time Crisis today, and like Jake was talking about listening to Belle and Sebastian and like their 2006 album, and Ezra was like, he's like, oh yeah, by the time 2006 came around, like I had started Vampire Weekend and I like wasn't really listening to any other indie like on purpose, and they had like a very strict like list of yeses and nos and like kind of rules about the band, where like it's like, yeah, like this sound is okay, this sound is not, and like it sounds kind of psycho, but then like looking back, like that's how they distinguished themselves, and that's how they made a record with such a cohesive sound. And they were clearly not taking a lot of influence from their contemporaries, and they were going back to the 80s. But it just came out so for like such a new band to just put something together like that. And obviously it was 2 guys who ended up, in my opinion, being 2 of the best songwriters of their generation. So yeah, but it's still so good.
I listened to that Time Crisis too, and that's where I think he brought up Elvis Costello, right, Connor? The My Aim Is True. I was like, that being an album he went back to a lot, which I was glad to hear, because I always drew like an Elvis Costello through line with the first record, and Elvis Costello is one of my all-timers, but it was like something that I never heard any of them talk about too much. So anyways. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. My number 2, Contra.
Nice.
I found myself going back to Contra the most for inspiration. And so like when I started the former band Wax Romantics, I knew.
R.I.P. Wax Romantics.
Yeah, R.I.P.
That was a real band.
I knew that like Vampire Weekend would be the biggest influence for that, and Contra was the album I went back to the most when, not saying I achieved that goal of what I wanted to do in Wax Romantics with Vampire Weekend. But anyways, Contra just like around that time really established itself as like one of my favorite albums, and has a lot of my favorite songs on it. I think it's a perfect second album. I think it would have been a daunting task to follow up the self-titled with something, and I don't think there could have been a better possible second record than Contra. So yeah.
Nice. Well said, my friend.
Thank you.
My number 2 is gonna be Only God Was Above Us. I put it super high up because genuinely, this record like brought Vampire Weekend back into my life full circle. Like it had been really, really long time since I went back to any Vampire Weekend, and then when this album came out, it prompted the cycle of, well, now I gotta deep dive through all the Vampire Weekend again, because it kind of just reignited the spark of like, well, this is the reason why I love this band. This is why I'm here. I think what speaks to me so much about this record is that it does harken back to like an older kind of, or not even an older, just a more familiar style from them. But it's like through the lens of everything that they've been through over the last like 10 years. I feel like Ezra, his lyrics are just a lot wiser. They're a lot more profound. There's a lot more like meaning behind the songs. But the songs don't necessarily take themselves too seriously. They're not like sad. They're not like super full or like super overly done. Every song has exactly what it needs, and they definitely like take a lot of chances with adding a lot of layers like strings, horns, extra piano, what have you, but it's never like too much at once, and it's never like added just for the fuck of it. Like everything that's on the record seems very necessary. So I think it like feels like their old stuff or their more familiar sound, but like even more refined and kind of dialed back and just a bit more like mature, just a bit more like, hey, we've like grown up a little bit, and we've like learned a lot, and we're still having fun, and we're still taking a lot of chances in the studio and taking a lot of songwriting chances in general, but like just with more insight and more like, I guess, knowledgeable decisions being made. So this record is a total hit for me. Like there's not a single song that I don't love. It's definitely been in my rotation heavily ever since it came out, and like I said before, kind of reignited my love for like the older Vampire Weekend as well, and kind of brought it all back into my life at the same time. So I love it a lot. I think it's a very solid record.
Awesome, man. That's
Well
cool.
said.
It's your second. Well, very well said. All right. Our number 1 Vampire Weekend albums.
Yeah. Process of Elimination. Like me and Colin have the same one. But yeah, my number 1 is Modern Vampires of the City. It's the album that originally got me into Vampire Weekend. But it's just, Pitchfork can be very pretentious, obviously, but they have a line about this album that I really like, where they say, I had it up a second ago. Said it's a remarkable progression from a band that was already functioning at a high level, which I think is a really good way to put it. Like we're already like an elite level band with 2 really good albums, and then they just like, I think just took such a step forward. And I think a lot of that was due to Rostam's production, but just their songwriting was just so dialed in, and the sound of the album is it's totally different from the two before it. Way heavier, way darker. Could have, which is tough to pull off, but then still at the end of the day, like not as serious as it seems on a surface level. When you really do listen to the lyrics, like he's still being funny and sarcastic, and it's not as heavy as like the album cover and the sound feels. But even on the last, like I was just re-listening to it again last night, and I've probably literally listened to this album 100 times, and I was like, I'm not gonna get anything new out of it, but I'll just listen to it again. But still, like there were songs I don't remember liking as much, and then hearing them again, like "Don't Lie" was one, and "Finger Back," that I forgot how much depth those songs had to them, and these songs have so many like layers to them. A song like "Step," that's a good example of like them not taking themselves too seriously and like fucking around and shouting out "Modest Mouse" and like old '90s rap, but then still like coming out with one of their most fucking incredible songs. It's so good, and it's like honestly probably started as a joke and ended up being such a cool song. My one, if I had to do a negative on it, the song "Hudson," I just don't love. It's right at the end of the album where the album's got, could have honestly just ended on "Yeah Hey," which is such a good song, and "Young Lion's" a good song too, but Hudson's just like this weird like 4.5 minute. It's really the only song on the whole album that doesn't really go anywhere, and pretty much every time I listen to the album, I'm just like, ugh. Like this album could have been not had that on it and been 12 songs or 11 songs, 39 minutes, and then I think it's probably a perfect album.
Ezra's actually talks about that on Time Crisis. Like he fully acknowledges that Hudson is a song that probably the most people hate. And
and I don't think I hated it at first.
Vibe.
It is like they should have either made it like 1 minute interlude or had it go somewhere, because it's not the worst like idea for a song, but it's literally doesn't go anywhere. It's like the longest song on the album.
Yeah.
So it's kind of but I love the rest of the album so much that it's still a 10 for me. So I don't really care, but that's my one qualm.
So yeah, you said it, Process of Elimination. Mine's obviously Modern Vampires 2. So my list for the longest time was just the order that they came out in: Vampire 1, Contra 2, Modern Vampires 3. And then I was making the song list. I was thinking about how much more I connect with the songs on Modern Vampires and just like how it truly is a masterpiece of an album. And like it came out, I was too young in 2008 to fully appreciate the first album. Definitely. I was like, the right age for Contra for sure. But I was 16, 17 and a very depressed teenager when Modern Vampires came out. And so like it was really, without being too dramatic, like changed my life at that time. And I love those songs so much and agree with everything you said, Connor. It's like truly a remarkable album. Mm-hmm. And I'll say I don't think there's any band that has a better trilogy of albums than the first three Vampire Weekend in terms of progression, in terms of aesthetics, in terms of cohesiveness. Even though, like you said, Modern Vampires is a different sound than the first two, and like definitely drastic change. Mm-hmm. It just felt like the natural place that it was supposed to end up in. And just how
they really did, like we already said before, like going from the first to the second album was probably so hard to do after the success of the first album, but they just fucking nailed it. And then they just did it again. The first three like were just the perfect, like two perfect steps, and they're like the perfect amount of time in between each one.
Definitely.
And I think that's part of why they're so like they've never been a band that like rushed it. They always just come out with an album when they feel like writing an album, and then they tour it, and then they just kind of chill. So.
That's how I always felt too. But in that Rick Rubin episode, Ezra was talking about how much he regrets them rushing Contra.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it's 2 years, like on paper, it's 2008 and 2010, but it was really only like less than 18 months that like those albums came out together. And he said like the pressure to finish Contra on time, and it was like totally artificial pressure that they're putting on themselves. And I never got the impression that it was a rushed album. But anyways, yeah. So that's my favorite Vampire Weekend album, Modern Vampires.
Nice.
I think just a fun aside, the only band that I could really think of that has like as good of a first 3 album trilogy would be, in my opinion, Local Natives. And I discovered Local Natives around the same time. They came to the scene around the same time as Vampire Weekend, and I always identified strongly with both of those bands, but they both have such a strong like first, second, and third record where it's like there's growth between all 3, but the aesthetic kind of matches, the universe is the same. So just wanted to, I guess, suck myself off there for a second and mention
for me, the runner-up is Oasis.
I'm sure it is, buddy boy.
Yeah, everybody remembers. Definitely, maybe
Be Here Now. Be Here Now is the third one that kind of fucked it. Everything.
No, what? Who says that? I think they were all equally appreciated, and they're all equally terrible.
All right, I don't have enough time to get into this with you guys.
Wait, you know who had a really good first 3 albums was Third Eye Blind.
Oh shit! I guess I need to get back to you on that.
We still need to do the Third Eye Blind talk. That'll be the next pod.
We'll do Third Eye Blind next episode.
All right, Julian. So yours is Contra.
Yep, mine is Contra.
I had a feeling.
Everything that you guys said about Modern Vampires is pretty much how I feel about Contra. And I think that it is often debated in the music universe, like which album is the most important release of your career. I think most people wind up landing on release 2 is like the most important, because if you can establish yourself with LP1, then you've pretty much got like, and pretty much what you just said, there's a rush to get to your second record. Like if your first record is successful, you have imminent pressure to just put out a second record as quickly as possible and have it be as good or better than the first one. And not many bands really live up to that. I think it's getting better. A lot of bands these days have more time to really work in the studio, and I think people are more patient these days. But back then, it was like, you pretty much had 2 years tops to get your second record out, and it had to be like a smash. And I think that they like nailed that with Contra. They expanded the universe. They pushed the ideas that they had further. I think personally that Contra, the self-titled and Contra, in my opinion, are like equally cohesive. Like there's not a song on Contra that I would take off. There's not a thing on that record that like doesn't make sense compared to the other things on the record. I don't think there's a single song on this record that I would skip a single second of or change a single second of. And this is also the record that really solidified Vampire Weekend for me. Like specifically the song Cousins, when it came out and my dad showed me the music video for it, I was just like, oh, like this is the best thing I have ever heard in my life. And I thought that for like years. And I showed everybody I knew. I was like, oh, you like music, right? Like, have you heard this song called Cousins by Vampire Weekend? And the video was always like something that went along with it. It's one of the few music videos where I actually think it tells a strong story with the song, and it matters that it's paired with the specific song. And yeah, I mean, this album just really defined like the music that I wanted to make for most of my life. Like kind of what Colin said about Wax Romantics, but just on a grander scale, I've always had the thought of like, if I could be part of something that has an end result that's anything like Contra, like that's what I want to strive to do. So it's a personally defining record for myself, and it is the reason why I love Vampire Weekend as much as I do.
Very well said. With it being like so cohesive, I was just thinking how impressive it is that they managed to do that and still get a song like Giving Up the Gun, where it's like a power pop song in the middle or like really on the back half of
or a song like A Diplomat's Son.
Really cohesive. Yeah,
where it's like
the fact that those two songs sounds
but neither one feels like an
so
outlier.
natural on an album. It's crazy.
Yeah. It is very, very impressive of a feat in my opinion.
I will say, Julian, like how you feel about Contra is kind of how I looked back on it. It's like how I wished I felt about it. Because there are like the few like the songs that I really like on it. That's like how I kind of feel about the whole album. But then when I just do go back and listen to the whole thing, like there's just those couple songs that don't do it as much for me. So like it would be my number one if I like those songs more, and that's really just like a matter of opinion. But I thought it would be it was definitely a contender for number one for a little bit. So it is an awesome album.
Yeah, I think as far as, and kind of what Colin was just saying as well, like the breadth of kind of different ideas that are on it that get explored, but the fact that they all do feel like they belong together, and the fact that they're all kind of also ideas that are briefly visited on the first album, more or less. So nothing feels completely foreign or like completely brand new on Contra, but it's just like kind of a deeper approach. I think it's like that's when they hit their stride between minimalism in performance and then maximalism in production. And then for me, Modern Vampires is when production turns to be like the main focus, and then it's like the songs are slightly oversimplified and the production is slightly overdone in my opinion. But like Contra to me is just like the inverse of that. So I feel like that's honestly why I would prefer Contra and you guys would prefer Modern Vampires, because
makes sense.
I think you guys definitely you guys are more about the like the universe and lore, and also just where you guys were as individuals at the time that the record came out. So
not to totally change the topic, but something stuck in my craw. Connor, were you serious about Third Eye Blind having a great trilogy of albums? Because I thought their second one was like a notorious sophomore slump.
I said it's a great trilogy of albums if you break their first album up into 3 different albums.
Oh, I missed that part. Okay.
Yeah, their second album is supposed to be really, really bad. I haven't listened to it. I'm just like having the hindsight there. I'm like, well, I'm gonna just enjoy this first album, and that's just all that.
That's the only thing I will consume. Julian brought up the second album thing, and I remembered the sophomore slump conversation about Third Eye Blind. So that's what brought that up. Okay, guys, sorry to do this, but
songs.
Yeah, do a pee break, and then I have to drop off soon. So we're gonna have to rush through the songs.
Okay. Well, then I'll just hold it. We'll be good. We'll just go into.
Can we do rapid fire 10 to 1 in a circle, same order?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. 10 for me. My list is it was really hard to make this list.
This was impossible.
It was quite hard.
So if something's not on here, just don't be mad at me.
I have about 4 lists, and I'm just going to pick the one that feels the best.
Yeah. 10 for me is Taxi Cab.
Oh,
excellent.
Mm-hmm.
A-Punk.
Diplomat's Son.
Nice. 9 is Hope.
Oh, nice. M79.
I Stand Corrected.
Nice. 8 is 1.
Holiday.
8 is going to be Step for me.
Oh, nice. 7 is Obvious Bicycle.
Nice.
Which is
that's one I should have on my list.
Same.
Such a terrible name for a song, but great song.
I always liked the name of the song.
I was like trying really hard to be like ironic hipstery thing to say.
Yeah, it was very hipstery. Anything with bicycle in 2013 was a little too on the nose. That's very true. 7 for me is Classical.
Nice.
7 for me is going to be. Yeah, seriously, same. 7 for me is going to be The Kids Don't Stand a Chance.
Oh, damn. I forgot about that song. That's a fucking
I should
great
have
song.
that song on mine too.
Oh, that's like a little out. That one, like, you kind of forget about because it's definitely a different sound than the rest of their first song, but it's one of the best songs on there. 6, I have Step at 6.
Very good.
I have Cape Cod at 6.
Nice.
Quasa.
Number 6 for me is going to be Classical.
Ooh, we were close on that one, Julian.
We were very close.
My 5 is Yeah Hey. I would honestly probably flip Step and Yeah Hey, but whatever. Yeah Hey at 5.
This is crazy. My 5 is Yeah Hey.
Nice.
That's insane. Yeah. Nice. You guys are always so synced up.
We're going to line up on anything, honestly. So.
Yeah,
I feel like you guys always have at least one lineup.
Yeah, we were pretty simpatico on Steely Dan.
5 for me is going to be the song Hope.
Nice. I could have had Hope higher. I think I did when I originally did it. That song.
Hope is such a fucking banger, dude.
When I listened to that song for the first time, I was like, God damn, this is it. They're back.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It could be like, not to like foretell a prophecy of any kind, but like it could be like the last song that they release professionally, and I would be okay with that. Like it's the perfect career closer if it were to be such.
But if they've got more in them, I'll also take more.
Yeah, let's send it our way, boys.
Absolutely. All right, Colin, number 5 wait.
No, you got to do 4. I think.
I try to do 4.
Yeah.
All right, my number 4 is Campus.
Nice.
Bop.
My number 4 is another
meme on TikTok lately. I've seen a couple of TikToks with that. I'm like, good.
That happened a while. It came up on TikTok a bit ago as a trend. But I guess it's back for a second round now. I have another C song for my 4. It's Cousins.
Oh shit.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Number 4 for me is gonna be the song Horchata.
Okay.
Which I put it there because I honestly think the way that it opens up Contra and sets up that record, it sends shivers down my spine.
Great opening track. Yeah.
I will say, whenever I hear somebody say horchata or whenever I hear somebody mention a balaclava, I have to sing that. It's impossible not to. It's
possible not to. Yeah.
Okay. My number 3 is Walcott. Shout out Cape Cod.
Nice.
Beautiful.
My number 3 is White Sky.
You shouldn't say out of Cape Cod. You're either on or off Cape Cod. You're not in or out. So that's a little locals beef.
Out of Cape Cod. Yeah.
That's the kind of info we could only get from a man such as Connor.
Who's been to Cape Cod. I don't know how propositions work when it comes to Cape Cod. I've never been there.
Well, that's how they work.
I would love to go to Cape Cod.
That would be cool.
I would go in the summer, not in the winter.
Yeah. My number 3 was White Sky.
Oh, nice. Very good.
That one got booted off my list. I'm sad I did it now. It's such a good song.
I would call that an HM for me for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Number 3 for me is going to be Giving Up the Gun.
Another HM.
That one should have been on my list. I love that song.
Honestly, yeah, that's not even an HM. I'd call that an oversight.
That might be my favorite music video.
It's a very, very good video.
That Jake Gyllenhaal cameo.
Yeah.
And Rizzo.
Number 2 is Diplomat's Son.
Very good.
That's my favorite moment in any Vampire Weekend song where he does last night I smoked a joint and we fell asleep in the same bed and I woke up this morning and you're gone.
You were gone.
With that echo of the gone, 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 gone.
Yeah.
Like just a perfect moment in music right there.
Diplomat's Son not being on my list is a huge oversight. And I regret it.
That's my number 2, my 1 and 2 were easy for me. Those have like been my 1 and 2 for a long time.
My 1 was easy. My 2, even now, I regret putting it's on my list for sure, but I don't number 2. It's Don't Lie.
What was it?
Don't Lie.
That is a great song.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have necessarily guessed that being super high up on your list.
Yep.
That was the one that stuck out to me the most re-listening to Modern Vampires last night of being like, I've not been giving this song its credit. It plays a really important part in that album, honestly.
That's why I put it high because it is such a
I wanna
important part.
know, does it bother you? Long bit of the ticking clock. Jam. That song is a bop.
Jam. Yeah, that was always stuck in my head, which is another reason I put it as number 2.
All right, Julian. Number 2.
All right, number 2 for me is going to be the song "Run."
Nice.
Classic.
Oversight. That's not
Can't go wrong with it.
Yeah, I only put 2 from Contra, but I really could have had "Run" and "Giving Up the Gun" on there.
Did any of us put a single song from "Father of the Bride" on our list?
No, so Harmony Hall almost. I thought I was gonna have Harmony Hall, and it did not. I didn't have a hard time booting it after I actually laid them all out.
Yeah,
that'd be the only one that would be a threat.
Yeah,
definitely. I agree.
Or Sympathy.
All right, the big number 1, Connor.
Number 1, Hannah Hunt.
Okay, I was wondering where it was.
Yeah, not just because he shouts out Santa Barbara. It's just the fucking poetry of that song is like you're talking about getting shivers down your spine. That's the song that gives me shivers down my spine when
it definitely does
a gardener
similar
told
thing.
Plants move, but I did not believe him till me and Hannah Hunt saw crawling vines and weeping willows. Just it should be pretentious, but it's not. It's just like the perfect Ezra, him striking that balance of just being charming.
It always felt so sweet to me. Like just one of the sweetest lyrics of all time.
And then just the fucking drop, like midway through.
Oh, and him singing up an octave on
this is why I was sad.
That's the emotional peak of Modern Vampires, and I'm an absolute fool for not having Hannah Hunt on my list. Yeah, I think what happened was I was like, oh, okay, I'll make the 10 through 5. Obviously, Hannah Hunt will be in my top 5, and then as I was doing the 5, I just assumed it was elsewhere on the list and left it off. But yeah, that's a huge oversight.
You're number 1.
I don't know what was harder, this or Steely Dan, but they were both really fucking hard because they're both just like at least 4 albums of like literally you could pick any album
of no skips
from those 4 albums. Yeah, they're all so good.
Okay, my number 1 was Step. And that's the one song on here I feel sure about. Any time of the day, any day of the week, Step is my favorite Vampire Weekend song.
I honestly did not know that, and I feel like I should have.
Mm-hmm.
I would have always pegged it as like a Cape Cod or something like that.
I remember it like it was yesterday, Step coming out. I again, depressed teenager. I had stayed up all night for some reason. I couldn't sleep. And the sun had just started to rise, and I had to get up, and I was exhausted. I hadn't slept a wink. I was sitting in my bed, and I opened up my phone and saw that Step had just been released. And so, like, as the sun was rising on a sleepless night, I listened to Step, and it changed my life.
Redid your brain chemistry.
Redid my brain chemistry. I thought this is depressing that I stayed up all night. This is actually kind of cool now.
Have you heard the remix with Danny Brown and Despot?
Yeah, for sure.
Pretty great.
It is great. I love Danny Brown so much.
Yeah, and Despot.
Big Despot fan too. What were you gonna say, Julian?
Oh, I was just going to say, few things hit harder than when the drums come in on Step. The poo. It's just like chef's kiss of performance.
Yeah. And just, it's like the background of the song was so cool. It's it's Mischievous Souls, right?
Souls of I think it's Souls of Mischief. Yeah.
Souls of Mischief. Yeah.
You in the world. You always
Girl. And that's a sample of Souls of Mischief, not Mischievous Souls. That's a sample of a Bread song that
they talked about it on Time Crisis.
Yeah.
And then they got the modest.
It's an instrumental version, so there's so many layers to like the samples in the song. But whatever.
Pretty great.
All right, Julian, you're number one.
All right, my number one, closing it out simple, is Cousins forever.
Nice.
I will never not just absolutely adore that song for everything that it is. I know it's like 4 songs, maybe one of the more basic, just I like rock kind of songs that they have, but it's the reason. It's truly the reason why I like fell in love with Vampire Weekend, and in my opinion, it is like a mission statement for everything that they sought out to be. So, I will always show people Cousins first if they haven't heard Vampire Weekend before, and I guess for that reason, that's why it's my number one, because it's like the best example of what I think of when I think of Vampire Weekend.
He said, was it Cousins or was it Holiday where he was trying to start the 4th wave of ska?
Holiday.
Okay. Cousins could have been it.
Cousins could have been it. Yeah.
Okay.
That's Julian. I totally agree with you. Cousins was high up on my list, but for me, my go-to, if like someone was like, "Tell me what Vampire Weekend is about," I think I would play Holiday and show them the music video. Because like the fact that Holiday was such a big single and it's that like scot up and intellectual and the way it is, it's like that's what Vampire Weekend's about.
I think for me, it's just like because Cousins, you can really hear the fact that they're all still figuring out how to play their respective instruments and how to like complement each other. Like the drum part that CT has on Cousins is like you listen to it, and not to sound like an asshole, but you can tell like that drum part was arranged by someone who doesn't necessarily arrange drum parts all the time, and he accidentally came up with something 10,000 times more badass than like a studio drummer would have ever come up with for that song. Like just a snare and like a bell for like 3/4 of the song. Like no one else would have done that. And like the guitar slides down, like no one would think to play guitar like that except for Rostam. And like
I always felt like,
you know,
especially on the first 2 albums, like, and you obviously know so much more about drumming than I do, but his drumming is always like just super unique. And he almost didn't even play it like a rhythm instrument as much as he
exactly.
just played it like an extra instrument in the band where he was just kind of playing along.
Just playing to the guitar,
Exactly. He's playing to the guitar.
I think it ends up being, especially on the first couple albums, like a really big part of their sound is his drumming. And then Bayo's so underrated. Bayo's fucking stage presence, by the way, just going back to the live show, Bayo's so fun.
So
you ever listen to any of his solo stuff? He has a couple decent.
Yeah, Sister of Pearl.
Yeah.
Great track.
Yeah. That's the only one I know because I heard it on Time Crisis, but it's good.
Yeah. No, I think CT's drumming on the first album is maybe like the best part of the first album in a way.
Yeah, because it's all so out of pocket and so tailored specifically to what Ezra and Rostam are doing on guitar that
when you hear his drumming, you just picture a guy on a really small drum kit. You just know that he only has like a bare minimum drum kit.
Well, yeah, that's the other thing that's impressive to me too, is like I don't think anyone ever sat down with him and was like, hey man, like here's how you set up a drum set, like here's how you make sure that you're like ergonomic and shit, because like the way that he plays doesn't seem like conducive to like being comfortable, and the way that he can still get around a drum kit and play so quickly is just like mind-blowing to me, because it's like I think of myself as a pretty ergonomic drummer, but I still can't necessarily move around the kit with the same amount of like ferocity and like franticness that CT can. And it's just super unique, and definitely like if they just had a drummer who knew how to play studio drums, like those songs would all be boring as fucking shit, because it would have like a 4 on the floor groove, as opposed to like being what it is. So I think it just shines through the most on Contra, like everyone just being like, okay, I don't necessarily know what I'm doing, but like I'm gonna just do this. I'm gonna like push this as far as I can.
Go for it. Yeah. Guys, I have to drop off. I dropped something in the chat that was I think I talked about this last time. It's this super dope pitchfork thing. It's called Live from Juan's Basement. And I think the Cousins video is like one of the coolest live performances ever. And if Rostam's contributions to the band and their live sets were ever doubted, watch this video and really the whole Juan's Basement series.
Another great one for that is their, I think 2013 Austin City Limits live show.
Yes,
Yeah, that
I
shows
watch that one all the time.
Ross,
Yeah,
like that's because that's like the live video I watched for years, and then I saw them live, and I was like, "Fuck, I wish fucking Rostam were here," because like all the Modern Vampire stuff sounded so much better with him there at that point. But all right, well, thanks again. It's always an honor to come on, guys.
it's an honor to have you on. We
Yes,
love
truly.
having you on every time. It's always my favorite episodes. So good stuff, guys. Another one in the bag.
So
Yeah. All right. Love you guys. Good night.
Good night.
Adios.